Good day, everybody. Rob here at westernpacificweather.com. It is currently the 9th of November, 2010. Fairly inactive day out there today, but there is a few areas that we are watching. Well, starting from the north and working towards the south, we have an area of low pressure over the Sea of Japan here that's interacting with a broad area of high pressure over China, actually producing very intense winds throughout much of Honshu. And actually, if you hear closely in the background of this update, sorry for the little rumble every now and then, but pretty much about sustained winds about 30 to 40 knots outside, kind of banging on the windows here. Actually, up in Yokohama, seen a maximum gust at 45 knots at around 0930 Japan Standard Time. So pretty gusty wind out there. Actually see that on the surface chart here. This very tight gradient up over much of Honshu and all the way down to Kyushu here. And as we all know, the tighter the gradient, the stronger the winds. And over much of Korea, seeing some fairly strong winds as well, sustained in some areas right around 20 to 30 knots as well. And even farther up here to the north, over much of Russia, seeing some sustained winds up to about 30, even up to about 40 knots there. So overall, though, the system is not producing too much precipitation for Honshu itself. Some areas of rain on the west coast here, but mainly farther up north over much of Russia and all the way up to the Kuril Islands and much of Hokkaido up in here. Going to be seeing some precip throughout the rest of today here, but overall, though, much of South Korea not really seeing too much out of it as well here. And as we look at the visible satellite imagery here, these cloud lines right in here over much of the Yellow Sea and into the Eastern Sea also are depicting those very strong winds throughout this entire area here. Basically, this is indicating that you have cooler air running off of China here and basically over the warmer waters producing these cloud lines throughout here. And also, if you look at it, you can actually follow the circulation of this system, eventually moving towards the east and eventually off towards the northeast here. And you can kind of closely, if you look closely here, you can see the cyclonic circulation in the Sea of Japan from this system. Also indicating these this easterly wind here as well. But as we start to scroll to the south, though, and look at the tropics here, it looks like Philippines seeing a fairly fair weather day today. Got a broad area of low pressure just to the north through the Luzon Strait, actually producing pretty high seas throughout that entire area. But overall, through much of Manila and many of the big cities in Luzon here, definitely not going to see a very active day today. Possibility of still afternoon thunderstorms, but temperatures mainly in the 80s. Moving out towards the east here on this visible imagery here, we still see 92 whiskey out here. Not looking at too much development out of that. It really has lost most of its convection and organization. Actually, looking at microwave imagery, really not too many cloud tops with this system. You can't really see any convection and organization with 92. So I would expect the system to get dropped. And also, and a reminder that these invest areas really don't mean that these areas will develop. It just means that they're going to be closely watched and that the JTWC and many of the warning centers are actually going to be starting to run specific model runs for these systems and just closely monitor them because they actually have some convection and low level circulation, which is some of the ingredients for development. But moving farther out to the west here, though, there is one system. It's just west of Borneo here as we see this area of convection right here. Now, this is the one I actually want to watch here because both GFS and NOGAPS are actually looking at this system developing here. As you can see on this NOGAPS 18Z run for the 8th, you have the area of convection right in here. But as we move on to the next several days here, this convection crosses Thailand and moves off towards the west, basically on a similar track as Cyclone actually took over Thailand here, moving out toward the Bay of Bengal, and that's where it actually gets picked up by some of this warm moisture. Shear starts to let off in that entire region, and NOGAP's really developing this system. And actually, if we move over to GFS as well, they are also showing the system moving over Thailand here and moving into the Bay of Bengal and really developing and actually eventually making landfall on the east coast of India. Yet again, basically a similar track as the last cyclone, Cyclone Jal. So just another thing to note that this system has potential for developing after it moves over, but still a very long range out and it still has to contend with the landmass right in here. But afterwards, though, definitely if that convection sticks around, very high potential for this system to develop as it gets caught up in the monsoonal trough and basically moves towards the west here. By monsoonal trough, I'm really meaning this big broad area of low pressure extending all the way from India over towards the Philippines. This is a surface analysis from Thailand's meteorological department, and I really like it because it is indicating this broad area of low pressure, this monsoonal trough. And any system that's going to develop on this is really going to follow this area of low pressure basically straight off towards the west area. You have the strong Siberian high upwards about 1,030 millibars hanging out over China here, and no system's really going to want to recurve towards the north and heads towards this. So definitely one thing to note that basically the coast of Sri Lanka and India really need to watch and invest closely of any possible development. But for today, here on the 9th, definitely the big story of the day is these strong winds here throughout much of Japan down into Korea. So, yesterday's question of the day was, where would you go on vacation? Only one response. Thank you very much. That was actually towards Laos, this one person said. Great spot to go for absolutely beautiful sunsets, diving, and the food, which is fantastic if you're really into the seafood here. Personally, one of my favorites actually up near Sapporo, kind of the opposite of Laos during the Ice Festival. Very beautiful sculptures up there, and definitely one thing I would suggest for everybody to check out if you visit out here in the Western Pacific. But today's question, actually a pretty simple question. What's your most memorable cyclone or typhoon out here in the Westpac or in Indian Ocean? Please leave your answers in the comment box below if you're on YouTube or in the Facebook field to the right. Also, if you have any comments or suggestions for the videos, please email them to me at westernpacificweather.com. Also, as usual, can find me at storm2k.org. Plenty of meteorological discussions on these systems I talked about today. So, thank you very much for listening. I'm going to take off for now before my house blows down here. Still getting those sustained winds outside about 30 to 40 knots. So, have a great day, everybody, and have another update tomorrow. Bye.